Turning to federal politics, yet another former high-ranking Liberal cabinet minister has announced he will not seek re-election. Marco Mendicino announcing yesterday night he has decided not to run again in the Toronto riding of Eglinton Lawrence. The former immigration minister saying this is the right decision at the right time for him and his family. In a statement, Mendicino made clear he has disagreed publicly with the Trudeau government's approach to Israel and the war in Gaza. Mendicino's decision comes as questions continue to swirl about Justin Trudeau's future as Liberal leader. And joining us now to discuss this very latest, we go to our Parliament Hill correspondent, Glen McGregor. So, Glen, Mendicino, a backbench Liberal MP, but this does continue the message and the rhetoric that we continue to see coming from the Liberal Party that we saw at the end of 2024 and now here this year.
Never a good sign when people are voting with their feet and saying that they are not going to stand for re-election whenever that election comes. Now, Mendicino, when he arrived as an MP in 2015, he was considered a real up-and-comer. Remember, he'd been a federal prosecutor, had been involved in the prosecution of the Toronto 18 terrorism case. He eventually joins cabinet starting after the 2019 election, became immigration minister, as you said, and then public safety minister through a very difficult period. I mean, he was the public safety minister in place when the federal government decided to invoke the Emergencies Act to end the Freedom Convoy protests. But it was really his mishandling of the Paul Bernardo prison transfer, I think, that kind of sealed his fate, and he was shuffled out of cabinet in 2019. And I think Mendicino probably realized that his future wasn't very good with this Liberal government, at least with Justin Trudeau as Prime Minister. When Trudeau shuffled the cabinet right before Christmas, Mendicino was not returned to cabinet, even though several other backbenchers were. But in his riding, downtown Toronto riding of Eglinton Lawrence, he was facing a very tough re-election fight. The Conservatives have nominated Karen Stintz to carry the party's banner in the next election campaign. Of course, she is a former Toronto City Councillor, ran for mayor, and also had been the chairperson of the Toronto Transit Commission. So it wasn't looking good. And also, the riding of Eglinton Lawrence has the third highest concentration of Jewish voters of any riding in Canada, second only to Thornhill, north of Toronto, and Mount Royal in downtown Montreal. And the politics of Gaza and October 7th really played into this. In his letter that he posted yesterday on X announcing that he was leaving, he really took some shots at the Trudeau government, saying that he had differed with them on their approach to foreign affairs, and in particular to Gaza and to Israel, saying that Canada's foreign policy was enfeebled in the Middle East. So really not a very solicitous goodbye from Marco Mendicino. He is leaving kind of with guns blazing. And notably, I think in that, Mel, is that he did not thank Justin Trudeau in that letter, although he thanked many of his colleagues from caucus and cabinet. Interesting thing, he said in that letter that he has been approached by many people who want him to consider going on in public service at the city level. So is there a future for Marco Mendicino in municipal politics? Possibly on city councilor. Maybe he one day makes a run for the mayoralty. Hard to say yet. Right now, though, he is about to become, whenever the next election is, a former cabinet minister and former member of parliament.
Okay, so time will tell when it comes to Marco Mendicino's political future. Now let's talk about the political future of Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. We still haven't heard a whole lot from him since that, wow, Christopher Freeland dropping that bomb. So what is on tap for him today? We know he is hosting a meeting with the Cabinet Committee on Canada-U.S. relations. Can you talk about what's going to come from there? And are we going to hear from the Prime Minister?
Yeah, we are still in a dark hole, a black hole here about what Justin Trudeau intends to do in his future. Remember when Christopher Freeland suddenly resigned from cabinet as finance minister on the just hours before she was supposed to give a major budget update, that Trudeau said he was going to go off and reflect. Think about it. Well, we think he's been doing that because he's been on a skiing holiday since Boxing Day, just came back from British Columbia yesterday. Yes, today he is chairing that meeting of that cabinet committee focused on Canada-U.S. relations. Of course, we're now less than 3 weeks away from Donald Trump becoming President of the United States again, and the date that he has said he's going to make good on his threats to impose those tariffs. So this is obviously urgent and pressing. Now, later in the day, Trudeau is going to go to the U.S. Embassy to sign the Book of Condolences for late former President Jimmy Carter. Carter was close to Trudeau's father, Pierre Trudeau, and I believe he'd met Justin Trudeau when Justin Trudeau was much younger. Trudeau had a lot of respect for him, and so not surprising he's going to go there. I don't think we're going to hear any comments from the Prime Minister at what is essentially a photo op at the book signing. He's probably not going to say anything about his future. I expect that's going to come next week. But really the pressure, Melanie, is growing on him. He has got to say something to his party, a caucus of MPs. He's got to say something to Canadians, really, because this is now heading towards 3 weeks that we really haven't heard anything about the Prime Minister's future at a time when we have this existential trade threat with the United States. Others are stepping in to fill the void. Doug Ford, Ontario Premier, has been sort of active, going on the U.S. media, advocating for Canadian trade. Danielle Smith, the Alberta Premier, also doing the same thing. So where's the Prime Minister is a really good question. We need to hear from him soon. I think his advisors realize that. And I expect probably by Monday or Tuesday next week, he will make a statement laying out whether or not he intends to stay on as Liberal leader, whether he intends to prorogue Parliament to give his party kind of more time to get back on its feet, and crucially, when we think there's going to be an election. It's not actually scheduled till October, but these confidence votes coming when MPs return at the end of January are a very serious threat to this government, especially now that the NDP has said that they will vote non-confidence. So we're going to see how this all plays out at the end of January when the confidence vote will come. After that, if the government falls in a confidence vote, you can start counting on your calendar. It's going to be somewhere between 36 and 50 days before Canadians go to the polls. Very likely this is going to be sometime this spring, whether or not Justin Trudeau is the person leading the Liberal Party into the next election.
Okay, so several scenarios to play through. We're going to check in with you multiple times, Glenn, because you never know. It's a new year.
Never know.
Things could change at the drop of a hat. All right, appreciate your time. Glen McGregor in Ottawa. Thank you. Thanks.